Hi, and welcome to the next episode of OTTB On Tap. I'm Niamh.
And I'm Emily. Hey, Niamh, what's on tap today?
Today we're checking in with Julianne Pangal and Ashley Olin, two of our RRP participants, to see how their journey is going with their OTTB Brooklawn, aka Rye, on their journey to the makeover.
Excellent. And for those just joining us, we have a series where we've been chronicling the progress of 4 trainers as they prepare their off-track thoroughbreds for the Retired Racehorse Makeover, which takes place October 9th through 12th, 2024 in Lexington, Kentucky. Also, please make sure to check out our website, www.ottbontap.com, to sign up for our newsletter so you can be the first to know about bonus content, upcoming episodes, and more.
To catch up on Julianne and Ashley's story, you can go back to episodes 14 and 24 for an in-depth introduction of who they are and a background on the OTTB that they're bringing along.
Welcome back, Julianne and Ashley. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
So let's just check in with you two about how your journey's been going. Before we get started on what's been going on, the AECs, let's do a quick recap about your OTTB. Can you just give our listeners a quick rundown on his jockey club name, age, etc.?
Sure. So jockey club name is Brooklawn. Our horse Rye, he is a 4-year-old thoroughbred gelding, raced in New Jersey. We acquired him back in July of last year, and he's been doing great. He's about 16.3.
And awesome. What disciplines are you training him for and pointing him for the makeover?
So our final discipline choices were show hunters and dressage, but we've been doing a little bit of everything leading up to that.
I feel like the last time we spoke, you hadn't really decided yet, and I know you were exploring some eventing. What was your thought process in determining which disciplines would suit him best for the actual makeover competition?
Sure. Ashley and I have been talking about it throughout this whole process, and it's so hard to decide at the time that final entries are due what exactly you might be ready for. I like eventing. I enjoy eventing, but I wasn't sure if beginner novice was just too hard of an ask for him at 4. And now, after coming off AECs and having completed 5 events, it probably would have been doable. But at that time, it felt like a harder ask. He's a super quiet, great guy. And I think he'll do well in the show hunters, too. And that'll be a way to get over some simpler fences at the makeover. And then dressage is supporting eventing and our other goals, too.
So you guys are teamed up with him. Are one of you riding him in one discipline and the other one riding in the other discipline, or how does that work?
No, so with the team format, we both have to ride him in both disciplines.
Oh.
Yeah. So we have to split everything.
Interesting.
That's really interesting.
Do they average your score for each one? Do you know, or how that all works?
Because so I know for dressage, we'll be doing, there's 2 components to it. So there's the training level test, and then there's I'm not sure what exactly it's called, but essentially a freestyle portion. Mm-hmm. Each one of us will do one of those parts, and we'll each get a score for it.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's more like his score than our individual score.
You'll be doing slightly different parts of the competition, but underneath the same discipline. Gotcha. And something I'd be interested to see with the starter level of eventing now being like an official level, I'm wondering if they'll add that in for future makeovers, because beginner novice, it's a real level, and the jumps are solid, and these are horses that haven't had a lot of training. So that will be interesting, I think, to see.
So let's talk a little bit about the AECs and how you guys got there. What were the requirements in terms of qualifying for that?
Sure. Qualifying for AECs, you have to win or get second at an event. And then you need 3 clear cross-country runs at other events. No jumping penalties at all. That's it.
And where had you done your qualifications before the AECs?
Sure. Yeah. So his first event, and we're really lucky. We live in an area where there's a lot of local events too. Mm-hmm. So his first event was the GVRDC Spring Horse Trials. which we had an okay go. We had a lot of struggles in show jumping, but the rest of it he was great for, and it was a first time, so couldn't be upset with anything. And then we won at Larkin Hill, which is just outside of the Albany, New York area. And then our other two were, with his win, he qualified for GVRDC or Area 1 championships. So that was another event that we did. And then the GVH horse trials, which are all pretty local to us.
Oh, okay. So you guys already had your local championships in your area.
Yeah, which was nice. That was at the end of August.
I think ours isn't until October or maybe even November. That's wild. So let's talk about your journey there, getting him settled in at the horse park and everything. It must have been like a weight off your mind just knowing that when you go back for the makeover, he's already seen everything.
Yeah, it was so great to be able to get over there before the makeover. And we had not ever done an overnight stay up until that point. So that was also our first overnight trip and experience. So I couldn't not take that opportunity to go and get there. And we went in with no expectations, but it was such a good experience. And just to give some insight into our process when we got there, in preparation for the journey, I started him on some ulcer guard. So our plan every morning was I would give some ulcer guard and we take a 40-minute walk just around the horse park.
Yeah.
So we do a hand walk every morning. And then the way the schedule was built, I wasn't showing till 6 or 7 p.m. at night.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy.
A long time to wait.
Of horses. Yes. And it was about 90 degrees that week. So we really did a morning walk, hung out in the stall, ate, and then we'd come back out at night to show.
Did you end up having to show under the lights when you were there?
So our show jumping was scheduled for 7 p.m. and we were the last division of the day. So typically they show jump in reverse order, right? But because it was the last division of the day, anyone out of the top 10, they just said, you can go whenever. Yeah. So, which was nice because knowing that I was ready early and I wanted to jump before the shadows got too crazy in the Rolex arena.
Yeah.
So I think it was a smart move to be able to go as early as you could. But then we did get to Victory Gallop under the lights, which was
fun. That's cool. Just to back up, there were a lot of horses there, right? Weren't there 400 or 500 horses?
I think the total entries were closer to 1,000.
Oh my gosh, that's wild. So I feel like you're fully prepared now for the makeover.
Yeah, it was insane.
And so how was it? Talk us through day one with dressage. How did he handle all of those horses being there? And just generally thoughts about getting through that first phase.
Yeah, so we got in, I'm just going to back up. We got in on Wednesday and we didn't do dressage until Friday. So Thursday was just a day to discover the horse park, and they do allow ring familiarization. So we were allowed to go in the, larger ring where the dressage rings were, just not into the actual dressage rings.
Gotcha.
So we were able to kind of school around the rings. And I think they do something similar for the makeover too. So that was a great opportunity to trot around, let them see the judges' gazebos, all the flowers. There's the flags from every state flapping around. So that's great. And I tried to take advantage of every opportunity that we had like that, just to school and walk around.
Yeah.
And then for dressage, despite there being 1,000 horses there, the ride times are spread out, and they did a great job doing that throughout the day. So he was great with just schooling around those horses. The rings were busy, but not so busy you couldn't traffic.
Yeah.
And he went in. I had some last minute bit changes because I'm an indecisive person and was playing around with different choices, which was maybe a little unfair to him, but he went in and did his job and was great.
Yeah.
We had an interesting conversation with our last, or I guess a couple episodes ago, with Madeline about bidding and her horse. Is there anything particular that you found that worked really well for your horse, or what was your kind of thought process there?
Sure. I am an experimenter, and I had him in just a plain egg butt snaffle for the longest time. And a trainer of mine looked at it and she said, this is really just a thick bit for his mouth, but the bars of it were thicker than she thought he needed. She suggested I switch to a bit that was just a little bit thinner, and I didn't happen to own an egg butt that was thinner. So I tried him in a double jointed snaffle, because that's what my mare goes in, with just the round middle section. And then I tried him in a different plain snaffle. And then I ended up putting him in just a plain D with a thinner that day. And all those bits, they're not super different, but it's amazing that he notices the difference still too.
Yeah.
And then for cross country, I actually put him in just a Dr. Bristol for a little more.
Oh, nice.
Breaking. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to love riding, and I was like a full cheek Dr. Bristol. It was the best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly.
So where were you guys standing after dressage, and how did you feel like he handled the test and everything?
Sure. So we scored a 32, which is pretty average for him. And that put us right in the middle of the pack. I think we were 15th after dressage. Yeah.
Cool. And how are you feeling about cross country? Did you have a chance, since you guys got there a little bit early, you had a chance to walk it a couple times?
I did. Yeah. And so the cross country course was a beautiful course. At the starter level, at all the events I've been to, they don't require water and ditches, but because this is AECs and a championship course, they did put in water and ditches. So he had actually never done water or ditches at an event before.
Oh, wow.
So I was a little stressed about that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think a lot of other people, where I saw a lot of commentary online about, they were like, this isn't supposed to be here. And even if it was supposed to be one or the other, maybe.
Yeah, there was supposed to be an option. That's how it's written.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
But it's a championship course. It didn't come as that much of a surprise to me that they chose to run it that way either.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know if you have a young horse or a greener horse, like if you're in our area or in your area, you can almost pick and choose the events that you go to for your qualifications, knowing that there's a venue, like Plantation, for example, doesn't have a ditch until you get to like novice or something.
Yeah.
So you can pick and choose the events to go to. So you could almost avoid those sticky jumps until a certain stage. So I'm sure that was a little bit of a shock for some people that were competing.
Yeah.
So how did you think the course looked in general, besides the ditch in the water?
It was great. It was a beautiful course, and it rode really nicely. The biggest thing for me, I made the mistakes, right? So we picked up just a couple time faults on the course. And again, so at the other events in my area, they've been running them at 250, 300 meter per minute times. And this was set at 350. So more like a beginner novice time, which again, super doable at the championship level. But I knew I needed to be a minute out when I came out of the water, and I was ahead of time. So I thought to myself, oh, I'll just slow down a little bit. And then I had 2 seconds of time faults.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's a bummer. But it's hard, though, when you're like trying to give your green horse like a good ride. But yeah, that's tricky to work out those things.
Yeah.
And you were probably just so excited to have conquered the things that you were worried about on course that it wasn't the first thing you were thinking about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I came out of the water tickled, and I was like, oh, it's easy from here on out.
I was just watching Burley last weekend, and my favorite pair there is Monica Spencer and her horse Artist, who's a thoroughbred, and she was riding this like amazing dressage test, just having the ride of her life. And you can see her coming into the last movement, which was a serpentine with changes. But as she comes around the corner, you actually see this look on her face. I'm enjoying myself so much. And then she forgot the next movement.
Oh, no.
But you could witness, like, everybody was like, oh my God, she's riding the test of her life. You can see she's having a good time. And she literally afterwards was like, I was having such a good time, and then I just forgot where I was going. So I think we've all been there, celebrating before it's over.
Yeah.
So then, was Ashley with you for the AECs or no?
No, she wasn't.
Oh, no.
I couldn't take the time off work. I wanted to go so bad, but we watched the whole thing on the live stream. So
awesome. That's very cool that they live streamed.
Forgot to cancel my free trial of Horse and Country TV, so I got charged. And then I was like, oh, shoot. But no, myself, my boyfriend watched it. All our friends watched it. We had a cute little Julianne fan club going back here in Rochester. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited for us to go back.
Yeah. And I'm sure it must give you a little bit of relief to know that like he's already seen the horse park, and that might make you feel a little bit better going into it since you didn't get to.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like that's something that, I don't know, I feel like if I can visualize everything or know what things are going or know the kind of things that are going to be there and what it feels like, that will take a lot of my nerves away. Or if I know the horse has seen the venue before, I'm like, okay, I know what to expect. Definitely helps.
Yeah, and just knowing how he took to it.
Yeah.
It sounds like he maybe was a little worried the first day, but then after he realized it was just like a trip to hang out in a stall and go for walks and ride for 45 minutes, an hour a day, he was happy as a clam.
He was into it, into the pampered lifestyle.
Yeah. He's like, this is great. Somebody, or I guess the last person that we interviewed, it hasn't aired yet, Chelsea was talking, because she's been to the makeover a couple times. She was talking about how hard the surfaces around the horse park can be on thoroughbreds. Did you have any kind of issues or worries about how that was going to be on him?
Yeah, so the cross country course was definitely hard the day I walked it, the day before, and then it rained quite a bit. And I don't want to say that was like a great thing, but it was good that there was some rain because it definitely helped the footing.
Yeah.
And then I'm a huge magic cushion person.
Yes.
So I did magic cushion him both nights after showing.
Nice.
After something, just for that reason. But again, the footing in the rings was great.
Yeah.
It was just more of tracking around, and then the cross country course was hard the day before.
Yeah, I think she mentioned that basically it's just like you're on concrete everywhere that you want to go until you get to your destination. And I thought that was just an interesting little tidbit and a good piece of advice for going into the makeover.
Yeah, I tell everyone going to the horse, like we went last year and ordered the stall mats.
Yeah, that's what she said. Yeah, she was like, get the stall mats, use a lot of bedding.
Yeah, it's worth it.
I think that's going to be a great takeaway for other people that are going. And then show jump day. How was that? And what did the course look like? And
it was good. The course was super friendly. I thought cross country was definitely, there were fences that were max for the level, and the water, the ditches, things maybe starter horses might not have seen before. But the stadium course was pretty straightforward. And of course, it's just magical to go into the Rolex arena.
Yeah.
That was the most stressful part for Rye, walking down the chute and having to stand there by himself while the next horse was going.
Yes.
That was his most stressful moment. But yeah, it rode great. And we went in, took a tour around, huge venue for a baby horse. And he did, after the first fence, he had some playing for me and was a little excited, but then he just settled right in and did his job, you know?
Yeah. And then when you guys were all finished, you ended up in pretty good standings and got a tip award. Is that right?
Yeah. So we were clean show jumping, but again, after the little bit of playing, I packaged him a bit and rode the course much more conservatively. So I had a time fault again, like totally rider error. The horse is not in charge of the pace. But so we came out of show jumping, and I think we were in, 15th or 16th. And just with all the other riders that had to go, there were some rails and stuff. So we ended 13th in the division, which got us a ribbon. And I was tickled about the ribbon at all. And then, yes, he was a reserve high point for tip. So he was the second highest.
That's so exciting. And so then you got to do your victory gallop.
We did, yeah.
How amazing was that, getting to do a victory gallop in the Rolex Arena?
Oh, amazing. I'm telling all my friends, like, you should all qualify. We're all going to go back in 2026.
You're making me want to go next year.
How exciting was the victory gallop? Were there any shenanigans with all those young horses?
So honestly, the starter division was such a mixed bag. Like, you had kids on pony, or, well, not kids, but riders on ponies. Mm-hmm. There was a horse in the class, I think, that was 26 years old.
Wow.
And then you had horses that were 4 years old. So it was really such a mixed bag because they only had an open starter and a junior starter. There wasn't the ability to, like at the other levels, you have master amateur and you have horse and you have junior and you have junior 14 and under, whereas this was just two buckets for everybody to fall into. So a lot of those horses were much more seasoned and some of them were real green beans, but it was a respectable victory gallop. And I got a little tiny buck at the end, but I think everyone survived. So.
Yeah, I feel like you don't really know like everything about your horse until you try to bring it in the ring for a victory gallop.
Yeah.
That's super exciting. We're so happy for you. And I hope that really sets a great tone for you guys for the makeover.
Yeah, me too. I feel like I won the Olympics, which is ridiculous because it's starter level.
It's huge. It's amazing to qualify. It's a long trip for you guys. I know a lot of people came from a long ways away, but there's so many factors that determine you even being able to trot down center line. And I think the fact that like you went there and showed off how great your little horse is a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah, it was so much fun.
And I'm mostly saying that because for me, beginner novice is like my Olympics. And I just always believe in whatever your goal is, make that your Olympics, right? Whether it's you're trying to get like a clean flying change or, I don't know, you're hacking out a young horse for the first time. Those accomplishments are huge.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any, other than magic cushion and stall mats, do you have any other kind of training tips or maybe tips to those that not only might be going to the makeover, but maybe you're taking your young horse to a big venue for its first time? Is there anything in particular you could think of?
I would just emphasize the ability to walk around and tour the venue as much as you can is so helpful, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's great that it sounds like you built in maybe an extra day to be able to do that. And it sounds like that gave you both some good confidence there. So moving on to our next section, we wanted to talk about some challenges, or if you've had any challenges along your process of getting the green horse off the track. And here you are all the way, you've completed the AECs and you're very close to going to the makeover at this point. Has there been anything training-wise that has been a stumbling block that you've had to resolve with Rye during your journey?
What do you think, Ashley? I've been talking a lot.
No, I don't think so. I think if anything, some of the challenges we've had are more like external. He changed so much that he needed to have a saddle change.
Oh, wow.
So for a while, we weren't riding him at all because the saddle that we were using that had fit him, he outgrew it. So he had a little bit of a rub that we were just waiting for it to heal. The flies were also bad this summer with him stomping a little bit. He dropped a little bit as far as weight. Now that the fall is here, I think he's thriving and been adjusting his grain and whatnot. But he's been really straightforward. I think, if anything, he's long and leggy. And so he is not always the most coordinated. And he's also 4. So sometimes I was cantering him and I sat up and I put my leg on to do a downward transition and there were just like legs everywhere. And one of the lesson students looked at me and she was like, "Are you okay?" I lost both stirrups. But other than that, it's nothing that has been like unmanageable. That's just who he is, I think. And I think he's been progressing really well.
I once had this 17 one-hand 4-year-old who was super quiet, but cantering him, I felt like I was like a tiny ship on a huge wave before, where it was just like all over the place. He was quiet and he was good-natured, but I was like, I don't know how we're going to stay in the ring. And then somehow, by the time he turned 5, he had this beautiful canter. It was like magic. I was like, this doesn't normally happen, but okay, we'll take it. But yeah, they can certainly be those kind of gangly, tough to package horses at certain parts of their growth.
I think that we had several months of a big kind of gangly canter, but that's to be expected. And like I was saying last time, the makeover puts more of a timestamp on how that progresses. But I think with everything that we've done with him this summer and how much attention he's gotten, it's come along really nicely. I have rode him the other day and he felt awesome. So yeah, no complaints on my end. All typical thoroughbred stuff.
Any challenges with preparing for the hunter division after he's been eventing and you've been working on dressage? I know technically those things should go hand in hand, but are there any special things you've done there in preparing him for the hunter classes?
I know we've talked a little bit about how Julianne and I have talked a little bit about how his head carriage in a frame is naturally a little bit lower. Mm-hmm. So in speaking about his competitiveness for dressage, he's not really framing in that uphill rocked back way that a dressage horse as you'd see in more upper level competition would be looking. He's still framed and he looks very fancy, but we've talked about making adjustments to how we're riding him to address that. But other than that, I think that he has the mind of a hunter. He's going to just lope along and do a course quietly. And I think that the eventing that he's been doing has given him more exposure to like nothing scary. I think he'll be okay with Phil. He's not afraid of the jumps. I don't think anything is going to blow his mind in the ring, at least hopefully. But I think that the steps that I think the activities and the eventing and things he's been doing this summer will prepare him pretty well for even just trafficking in a hunter hack with a lot of horses. We host a lot of horse shows at the farm where he is. And a lot of times those hack divisions can get a little dicey where you just have a mix of, you have kids who have learned to canter a couple months ago on horses that are safe, but they can't steer. And then you also have, people that are trying to get their green horses to a horse show. And so being used to that environment, he, even without necessarily trying to, he's prepared for that. I think he keeps his cool there.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think you finding out about your thoroughbred and how they feel about riding with other horses in the ring can sometimes be exciting. And I feel like, that pressure of being in a hack class with a lot of horses all doing the same thing and maybe not steering as well as you would hope could be a little bit exciting.
We're planning to go to a hunter show this weekend.
Cool. Oh, that's awesome.
So we'll see, how he does and what adjustments we need to make from there.
Yeah.
It sounds like right now in his training that he's almost naturally leaning in that direction. It's funny, Emily, you think you might agree with this, but he sounds a lot like my last thoroughbred in his early stages of just his build, his way of going and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that you can't really count out how much a horse like that is going to change from age 4 to age 7. I feel like if I showed a photo of my horse at each of those ages, you would think it was a completely different type of horse suited for a completely different type of job. And I think it's really cool that you guys are not rushing him and finding out like what suits him at this point in his life and his build and his mental ability.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think you touched on this, Ashley, a little bit earlier. How has he dealt with mental pressure of preparing for the makeover, even though he doesn't know he's preparing for the makeover, or maybe even the AECs? And then how are both of you dealing with that mental pressure as well in the final lead up here? Yeah,
that's a good question. I think that he is a little bit haplessly unaware in general. Wherever we take him, he's, so that's just his personality. And then I think that even in times when he's been a little stressed, he's very rational. So that, speaking as somebody who, I'm not the bravest rider out there, I don't find him intimidating because he'll have a little moment where he's like, oh, what's that? Mm-hmm. And then he is, oh, okay, I'm fine. So I think that each time he's gone out, whether it's with Julianne or with me, he's gotten easier with that sort of thing.
That's great.
I think really the final test was the overnight experience. And I think that our horse show this weekend, we're going to a horse show in Buffalo that's going to be a little bit of a bigger venue. I think that'll be another good test for him, but I think that he's very much on track to do well in that type of environment. Yeah. To your second question, I think as far as my own mental state regarding this, I don't know if it's fully set in yet. We still have some details to work out as far as strategy for each of our rides. I'm going to be doing the freestyle portion of dressage, so we have to talk about what makes the most sense for him to do during that, since we get to choose. And then we've got to talk through, courses and how to ride the hack and things like that. So yeah. I think for me, I think he's going to be ready, and I know that we are both more than capable of riding it well, but we still have some final details to polish up that we're both, like we were talking about last episode, we're both busy working adult amateurs that
right.
we talk all the time, but we're also two ships passing sometimes. But other than that, I'm really excited. I think that I was so happy for Julianne to get to go to AECs and see how successful that was. That makes me both really excited for her as my friend, but also like the fact that we get to go back and do it together is really exciting.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I feel like every time we talk to you guys, Emily and I get a little closer to thinking about doing it together.
Yeah, do it.
Julianne, how do you feel about your own preparation and where are you at mentally with this?
Yeah, I'm going to just reiterate what Ashley said too. I feel like our horse is ready to go. And I think there's I feel a little bit of pressure on myself. Only I could possibly make a mistake at this point.
Right.
Because I'm quintessential amateur. Like I'm going to have a nice course and then chip somewhere I'm going to chip this horse in or go along or miss a change or whatever, you name it. So there's just more of that pressure where I know we've done everything to get ready and he's ready, but it's like, what little mistake will I make?
Would you recommend, both of you, having done this as a partnership experience for those that maybe are working professionals, do you think it makes it easier to have someone else help to bounce off of and do this together? Or has that been more challenging at times?
I was just going to ask the same thing, Emily. That's funny.
Get out of my brain.
Well, I think, and I don't know where the idea for the group team competition at RRP came from.
Yeah.
And maybe it was originally intended for juniors and a senior team member or someone working with a trainer. But I just have really enjoyed working with a friend. I think it's fun to share. And we're both close and I think pretty easygoing. So it makes it easy. If you have that kind of relationship with someone, I would definitely recommend doing the team format. It's fun for me to share it and it's easier to share the expenses and it's easier as amateurs for, I think, us to share the time.
Yeah.
You know, it ebbs and flows. So sometimes one of us is riding more or less, or sometimes he needs a break. And you can speak to that too, Ashley.
Yeah, it's been the same for me. I think your horse can only benefit from having multiple riders. And so I think that for him, it's been good in that respect to get used to the both of us. I definitely also echo the time piece. And I think that I also echo the styles piece. Like the things that I've worked on with him have been different than what Julianne's worked on with him. He also is not my horse. So I think that it's a little different there. Obviously our partnership in this is together, but ultimately we talk through a lot of the decisions because Julianne owns him at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But again, as long as you have that relationship with somebody and you treat the horse as if he were your own, it works. And I've really enjoyed it too, because I think that there were rides that I probably couldn't have put on him myself. And I'm sure that likewise, we have different skill sets. So it's nice to balance it out. And when it's working, there's not a downside to it. I think that you may find yourself where maybe two people's riding styles or even their personality styles don't mix at all. And in that case, there could be challenges. But for us, it seems to have been, I think, working as well as it could have. So it's been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember last time we chatted, you guys were talking about the fact that you both have regular 9-to-5 type of jobs that require some travel and things like that. And I think that people in that situation, they're trying to balance when they can find time to ride and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's been really interesting to hear you guys share your experience with that. And it must make the whole thing just a little bit nicer knowing that, because I'm sure like every day when you get done, you're not like, oh, I really want to go to the barn. You also have relationships or a family or whatever the case might be. And I think that balancing that is really tricky. So having that person there to share the workload and the trade-offs is really nice. Yeah. So this is going to be a question for each of you, but what's your favorite or most rewarding thing about bringing a young horse along?
For me, it's that they learn so fast. Mm-hmm. I feel like the gains you have when you're bringing along a young horse are just massive at the beginning. Like you teach them something so simple like standing up the mounting block or going straightness. And of course, those are things you work on all the time, but it just clicks so much faster. You just see those gains so quickly when they're young.
Yeah.
For me, I think that I like reflecting on the journey. I have this memory of a green horse that I restarted for our trainer probably a couple of years ago. And I remember being so uncomfortable with his canter because it was a track horse canter. And I was like, this isn't fun for anybody. And I remember that I really liked the horse's demeanor, and I knew he was trying, and I knew that it was going to get there. And I don't know why this moment sticks in my head of we both were trying so hard to just make this canter work. And thinking to what he does now, he carts around IHSA students, and he does all the horse shows, and he's got a cute little short stirrup canter. Like you picture a quintessential short stirrup pony between their outside line, just a little pitter patter. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny and rewarding to reflect on how hard something so simple was at one point.
Yeah.
And so I think that, echoing what Julianne said, just the journey of watching them learn and the reality that, wow, I really taught that horse how to do something, is what is rewarding to me.
And I think it's such a special thing to be the person that imprints those things on a horse that comes off the track, because they already know a lot when we bring them home, but you're teaching them a new way of doing everything. And I think that it's just really cool when you see those little light bulbs go on and you're like, I did that. Okay, this is another question for both of you. What's your most memorable or funny story from having Rye up until this point?
We told the trailer story, which I think is
funny. Oh, yeah, the trailer story, yeah. Hopefully there haven't been any repeats about that.
Yeah, the whole AEC's experience was super memorable for me, too. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to get a lot of mileage out of that experience, probably leading right up until when you go back in October. That's pretty amazing.
So I think you mentioned for the lead up to the makeover, you have a hunter show this weekend. And then is there anything else, or are you just going to work on polishing what you have from that point forward?
Yeah, we talked about it, and we feel like he's as ready as he's going to be in his brain. He's feeling confident. He's taken to everything we've asked him to do. And so we thought about trying to do another away show, and we thought, let's just work on keeping him happy and work on the fundamentals up until the makeover. So we're probably going to plan a couple of low-key lessons off-site, just keep on doing different things with him. We trailered him to a lesson last weekend. We're probably going to set one up a couple weeks from now, but we're just going to keep his routine the same and just help him feel really good leading up to Kentucky.
Awesome. Keep him bubble wrapped and fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, I'll get one more saddle fitting. Yeah. Our farrier made him some special shoes, so he'll get those.
There you go. I was going to say, having to get, I don't know if you had to get a whole new saddle halfway through your journey, but that sounds like a not super anticipated part of the adventure.
It's not super fun.
And will he be for sale afterwards, or have one of you fallen in love with him and he's a keeper?
He's for sale right now, for sale or for lease. But he's part of the makeover marketplace.
Okay, great.
Yeah. But I don't think we're in any rush to sell him either.
Right, you wouldn't be unhappy if he stuck around a little bit longer.
It's the perfect position to be in for selling horses, where you don't have to sell them.
Yeah, right.
And all my horses I'm happy to keep right now, but yeah, he is for sale too.
I know that you mentioned when we interviewed you before that both of you like to fox hunt. Have you thought any bit about maybe taking him out later in the season after the makeover?
Yeah, both of us were actually hunting this morning. So yeah, I rolled into work just a little bit late. But yeah, the cards just didn't fall in a way that it made sense to hunt him before the makeover. Right. And that wasn't something we were aiming for. But both of us have been trail riding him, and we're in Western New York, so sometimes the footing after September, October is not good. Mm-hmm. But pending how the footing is, we might take him out a couple times.
That's fun.
It sounds like he would probably take to it pretty well from his attitude and the exposure you've given him, so that's super fun. All right, so let's ask you both one more tricky question. and then we'll ease it off here. What is one word that you would use to describe an OTTB?
I'm just going to think about it.
That's fine.
I think versatile. I think Rye especially has done anything we've asked him to do. And I think he could, with time, excel in anything we wanted him to do too. Mm-hmm. And I think that really speaks to the breed as a whole.
Yeah, he sounds like a pretty great ambassador for the Thoroughbred. How about you, Ashley?
That's funny. My word was going to be adaptable. So pretty similar kind of thought there. But
we've had a lot of synonyms, so it's okay.
Yeah, they're just like, I don't know, the fact that you can have a career change at only 3 years old and just take it in stride and say, okay, this is what I do now. That's really remarkable.
Emily, as an owner of a 3-year-old, what are your feelings?
I wish my 3-year-old had gone to the track because she's a homebred. My first experience doing this. And it's amazing how much I'm like, I'd really like to trade you for a nice 3-year-old OTTB sometimes. She's really good, but doesn't have that broader worldview that they get from going.
The exposure they get is just, you can't label that. They've seen so many things in such a short amount of time that it, like you said, it contributes to that worldliness that you just don't get with any homebred horse.
No.
We just picked up a horse at Fairhill a couple weeks ago, and from a really nice trainer there. And the Fairhill Training Center is just unbelievable in terms of, it's way different than going to the backside of parks or any other track or anything like that. And they hack out, they hack all over the place, they have turnout. It's a pretty unique experience. And when horses come to our farm, it's 120 acres, it's up on a hill, it's in Chester County Huntland. There's a lot to look at. There's babies, there's all sorts. And he got off the trailer and he was just not impressed. And we were like, he's already, because he would always travel to race. So it was his home property, he got to see a lot, and then he traveled to race, and he was just like, I've seen the world, you guys. This is not that impressive.
Right.
I think it's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So can you remind our listeners how they can reach you and follow along with the rest of your journey or contact you if they're interested in Rye?
Sure. So I have a website, OTTBmakeover.com. So his info is up there and my contact info is there if anyone is interested in purchasing him.
Awesome.
Perfect.
And then I post our journey on just my personal Instagram account, which is jpang1289.
Excellent. All right.
Awesome. You guys, thank you so much. We're so excited for you. And we're probably going to do a little quick check-in right before the makeover just to say we're excited for you and talk about anything that's on your mind right before the makeover. So we'll chat with you then. But thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. If you liked what you heard today, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can follow OTTB on Tap on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and contact us with interview candidates and topic suggestions at OTTBontap.com. We love hearing from you.